Alright guys, that's going to do it for today. A few quick reminders before you go. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on your platform. It will help the podcast grow and other true crime lovers to find us. Also, check out the website, TheKillFile.com, where you can suggest a case, find our merch shop, and submit a listener file. Follow The Kill File on your favorite social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and TikTok. Of course, you can always subscribe on YouTube as well. Find all of the links for the socials on the website. Come back on Mondays wherever you get your podcast fix when we will cover another case on The Kill File where nothing stays buried forever.
Welcome to episode
Stay
75
safe, you guys.
of The Kill
Bye.
File. I am so glad that you guys are back for another story. Before we jump into today's case, a few quick reminders. First off, if you are enjoying The Kill File and you would like some extra episodes each month, head over to our Patreon where you can find The Hidden Files. You can find this by going to the patreon.com/thekillfile or finding the link on our website at thekillfile.com. The Hidden Files are slightly different than our weekly episodes. They will still revolve around true crime, but they will be things like natural disasters, assassinations, and even some famous gangsters. If you're interested, I would say subscribe. It's $5 a month and you get 2 bonus episodes. And as the podcast grows and I have some help one day, the perks will grow as well. While you are on the website, feel free to check out our merch where you will find new items added all the time. Find yourself a cozy, fun true crime sweatshirt or a pair of sweatpants and support the podcast at the same time. While you're there, if you would like to suggest a case for me to check out or to cover, please fill out the form, or you can fill out the form for the listener files. It's just one category of the Hidden Files where you can share a story of your own or someone that you know for a chance for it to be read on an episode of the bonus content. These can be anything from a time your little brother stabbed someone in a fight to a time that some creep was terrorizing your city. Light or dark, funny or serious, email those stories to thekillfilepodcast@gmail.com or fill out the form on the website. You can remain anonymous and feel free to change any name so that no one will know who you are, but send in any stories that you think that we would like to hear. They don't have to be long, they just have to be real. Share your experiences with us so it will help us all open up and share ours. Finally, please take a second to rate, review, subscribe, follow, whichever you do on your app. It will help boost the podcast for other listeners to follow, and it would help us to grow and get better and better. Okay, that's it for business. Let's talk about today's case. Today, we are going to be covering a Brazilian serial killer known as Tiago Henrique Gomes da Rocha. It looks like Rocha, but it's pronounced Rocha, which sucks for me. AKA the motorcycle killer or murderer. Trigger warnings for today are going to be murder, femicide, and mentions of feticide. Today's story is going to take us down to Brazil, more specifically to Goiânia, which is its own territory and capital to the state called Goiás. This area is said to be heavily populated, only second to Brasília. Goiânia is also called the Green Capital of Brazil because it has so many parks, and it's also home to the infamous Sertanejo Music Festival for Brazil. Goiânia is said to be a major hub for agriculture and transportation to the Central West areas. In 1988, the year our serial killer was born, Goiânia was dealing with the aftermath of an incident that happened in the area in 1987 involving radiation, and it was called an accident. In 1987, there were 2 men who found a capsule that was abandoned, and it had less than 100 grams of cesium-137 chloride, which is a radioactive chemical compound that has been used in medical radiation therapy and industrial gauges. It is usually kept in capsules or lead-lined containers. Long story short, men sold it for scrap, and within just a few days, the city was contaminated with this material, and it's extremely radioactive. 112,000 people were screened within just a couple of weeks, with 249 people having directly been exposed. 4 people died, 46 had to get treatment for contamination. It was a whole disaster and messy, and it was very sad. I've actually heard at least on 1 different podcast about this subject, and it probably could have been prevented if people were taught correctly and had the stuff had the necessary stickers and warnings on it. So this incident had happened in 1987, but in 1988, the area was still dealing with so many people having been contaminated, and of course the land area where the chemical was found as well was contaminated, meaning the ground had to be dug up in areas and houses demolished. Efforts for decontamination were ongoing for what was considered a public health crisis, and right in the middle of that, our future serial killer was born. Tiago Enrique Gomes da Rocha was born on February 4th in 1988. After much research, there is still not a whole lot known about his childhood, but just a few key factors. It was said that he was raised by his grandparents, and that he was alleged to have been sexually abused by a neighbor when he was around 11 years old. The only other thing that's really known was that he was allegedly often bullied as a child in school. I did a little research for us since we don't really have a background to really delve into. I thought that we could learn a little bit from an expertise viewpoint of what childhood sexual abuse and bullying might have on someone's psyche long term and what kind of a person could develop from these forms of trauma in their lives. First off, let me just say that these are possibilities of what could happen or patterns in people. It does not necessarily mean that everyone who experiences these things will have issues or problems or mental illness in their lives. There are many of us that have suffered from some sort of childhood sexual abuse, myself included. So if you have suffered from this, just know that you are not alone. There are a lot of us out there, some that go on to have lifelong issues, some that go on to be criminals. Some that end up with issues they can manage with therapy or medications. Some who pretend it never happened and suffer in silence. Others might have let it define them, and still, many who overcome it and decide it's not going to define who they are. Regardless of the various categories we might fit into, one thing is for sure. When you are sexually abused as a child, it changes you. It just does. How could it not? Someone you may have trusted or loved took advantage of you in the worst way possible for their own perversion and sickness. And as much as none of us want to talk about our own experiences because we might feel gross, we might feel ashamed, we might feel embarrassed, we might feel broken, or maybe even feel numb to it. Talking about it, in my opinion, is the key to overcoming it. I'm not suggesting that you relive that day, month, year, or period of time in your life every day or with every person you meet, but I truly believe that talking about it with someone you love, you trust, or a therapist can get that shit out of you and helps you learn the things that it might be affecting that you don't even realize. And of course, others that you might. Okay, so according to an article put out by bravehearts.org, when a child is sexually abused, it can actually change the way the child understands their own world, the people that are in it, and where they belong. It can distort their world while also creating different feelings like betrayal, fear, and mistrust. This can lead to children having a hard time connecting to others and even themselves. Abuse can change a child's personality starkly from before and after the trauma. According to the Center of Expertise on Child Sexual Abuse out of the UK, which can be found at csacenter.org/UK for anyone who is curious, no two people are affected in the exact same way. They encourage survivors or victims of childhood sexual abuse by saying they themselves are actually the experts on how it has impacted themselves and that any attempt to understand the impact should begin with the victim. I thought that this was very empowering, almost allowing the victims to take back their own trauma. Research shows, according to them, that many victims have impacts to their mental health, and this includes anything from eating disorders, sleeping problems or insomnia, depression, anxiety disorders, and dissociation. I can tell you personally that I have horrific anxiety, insomnia, and at times severe dissociation. Dissociation, for anyone who doesn't know, is when a person feels disconnected from their own identity, thoughts, emotions, senses, memories, or even their own behavior. I would imagine that people who suffer any kind of trauma, or maybe even people who haven't had trauma, have felt some of these things at some point in their lives, right? I've heard a lot of people saying that there is big T trauma and little t trauma in a person's lives. And although I would love to delve into what exactly that means at some point, I take it that childhood sexual assault would probably fall on the big T trauma scale, but who knows? There are other things in the body that child sexual assault can affect, like having impacts on a person's gastrointestinal health, like your gut health, gynecological or reproductive health, which is specific to women's bodies, pain, which can include chronic pain from the injuries, cardiopulmonary health, which is your heart health, your general well-being, and also your body mass index, which means whether you are considered overweight or obese. This all makes sense to me because so much of our bodies and minds are connected, and these kinds of traumas can affect so much. So the last thing that I'm going to pass on to my listeners is possible short-term and long-term effects from sexual abuse as a child. This can help us reflect on our own issues and/or keep us informed for any children in our own lives and things that we can look out for. I'm going to tell you right now that this is a lot more common than people realize. So the short term, which means things that could have happened as we were still children, could be things like nightmares, suicidal or self-harming thoughts, lack of self-esteem, mood changes, difficulty concentrating or loss of memory, poor attendance at school or even poor performance, zoning out, not really listening, reduced self-esteem or self-hatred, loss of social control, increased illness, body aches or other physical issues, sleeping or eating disorders, and even regressive behaviors, like things that are no longer age appropriate. Now, these are going to be the longer-term effects of sexual abuse in childhood, and if any of us who may have been abused have gone through these things, we can remember these have been studied and are known things, which means that we're not alone in our feelings or our thoughts. These can be things like relationship problems, sexual difficulties, PTSD, suicidal ideation, alcohol or any substance abuse, parenting difficulties, inability to form lasting relationships, identity difficulties, the development of criminal behavior, and/or the development of violent behavior, which the last one is interesting due to our case today. Now, let's quick touch on the effects of childhood bullying, which can also severely affect a child and their well-being. Many of us may know some of this or have been affected by bullying in some way in our own lives. I would actually be surprised if any of us out there haven't been bullied in some way or time in our lives, even by our own quote-unquote friends or peers. So being bullied can affect not only a child or teen's self-image, self-esteem, social interactions, or even school performance, but it can lead to other issues as well. Someone who's being bullied can have mental health issues like depression, substance abuse, anxiety, or suicidal thoughts or behaviors. Short and long-term effects of bullying can include depression, anxiety and stress, anger, feeling isolated or lonely, frustration, feeling rejected, poor relational skills, or changes in sleeping or eating. This can later lead to dropping out of school or avoiding it, separation anxiety, poor academic performance, eating disorders, self-injury or suicidal or homicidal ideation or even actions. I think that we all know about that last one as we are in the age of school shootings, unfortunately, and this is a real problem in our country. Okay, so now that we have learned a little bit about the effects of bullying and childhood sexual trauma, I will bring us back to today's serial killer, who I am going to refer to as Rocha from here out. These are things that Rocha would later say are the reasons for his murderous actions. So keep what we just learned in mind as we learn about his criminal activity. When Rocha was a young adult, according to the Big Book of Serial Killers, he would work as a security guard, which in turn he would use for crimes such as robberies. Before we get to the murders, I just have to say that I looked up the pronunciation on each part of Rocha's name so that I could say it correctly, as I can usually do like a Spanish pronunciation pretty well, but this was like Spanish Portuguese, which was completely different, and that's why I spelled his name in my entire script phonetically and not correctly so that I would say it right. With that being said, I could not look up the pronunciation of every victim's name because it was just impossible as far as time goes. And I'm going to do my best to pronounce these names, but if they're anything like Rocha's, where they sound completely different than they are spelled, I will be butchering these names horrifically, and for that, I want to apologize and say that I don't mean any disrespect to the victims or their loved ones, as pronunciation and recognition of the victims is very important to me as a sign of respect, but I just couldn't do so many. I'm sorry. Okay, so as Rocha would eventually progress to more crimes like murder, he would confess that at first he went after marginalized people like homeless people, sex workers, or gay people. Eventually, his killings would steer towards women and the anger he felt inside for them. When Rocha would eventually confess, he would say that his very first kill was a gay youth named Diego Martin Mendez, who was just 16 years old at the time of his death. Rocha had lured the teen into the forest under false pretenses of wanting to have sex with him. But sadly, he would strangle Diego to death instead. The body was never found. Even with the false pretense, Rocha was then 23 years old and should not have been even pretending to want to have sex with a 16-year-old. When he was later caught, Rocha would say that the reason that he would start his 4-year-long killing spree was because of the sexual abuse from the neighbor, the bullying, and then he added on a few other reasons, including betrayals and quote-unquote romantic disappointments. In turn, he would say the actions of these people in his life would force him to feel anger towards society, which would lead him to killing. Then, the person that we would refer to as the DA in America, called a delegate in Brazil, would state, quote, he was distressed, looking for a way to solve the problem, and discovered that killing made him feel better, end quote. Gross. There isn't known to be more murders until January of 2014, which is kind of weird to me. So that's almost 2 years of a cooling off period. It makes me wonder if they just don't know about more, because the pace that this man starts at seems to already be an escalation, and that's unusual. So I can't help but wonder if there are more between the first and the second known murders. The next murder would take place on January 18th in 2014. A young teenager, just 14 years old, named Barbara Costa, was said to have been waiting for her grandmother in the square. I'm guessing like a town square, maybe, type situation, when a man on a motorcycle would drive by and shoot her dead in the chest. On the very next day, Rocha would strike again, this time in the form of murdering a 23-year-old woman named Beatriz Mora. She was heading to a local bakery when a man on a motorcycle approached her. He pretended there would be a robbery, but before Beatriz could act in any way, Rocha shot her in the chest, killing her right there. 9 days later, a 16-year-old girl named Arlette dos Anjos Corvejo was in a neighborhood walking along a street called Potengui, sorry if I butchered that, while on her cell phone when suddenly she was approached by Rocha, who was on a red motorcycle, and the man yelled, "Robbery!" as he often did, and before they could do anything, he would again shoot them. This is how many of the shootings and murders would occur, choosing someone at random, riding up to them and yelling robbery, and shooting them immediately. There were some exceptions to his style of killing, though. When it came to the murder of Lilian Sissi Mesquita y Silva, a 27-year-old mother in Cidade Jarmin, Lilian was on her way to pick up her children from their school when Rocha would quietly walk up to her and shoot her in the chest with a .38 caliber gun, which is just horrific. Not only did these kids lose their mother instantly, but also, how did no one see this? Being from another country, it was kind of hard to find some specifics on the crimes. In fact, I had to translate page after page of information, just hoping for some insight on the victims, and this was the best I could do. Another victim, named Ana Maria Vitor Duarte, a 26-year-old woman, was just standing outside of what was said to be a sandwich shop with some friends. Rocha got off his motorcycle, still wearing his helmet. He announced this was a robbery, then shot Ana in the chest. I mean, this was 2014. How did security footage not catch him anywhere, or anyone get a glimpse of a license plate at this point? 2 murders would occur on the same day, which was May 8th, 2014. The first was a 24-year-old woman named Janaina de Sousa, who was sitting at a table with a friend in public when a man around 9:40 p.m. stopped his motorcycle, got off, walked towards the woman, and shot her in the chest. The bullet was said to strike the victim in her heart and her lung. The second murder of the evening was a 26-year-old woman named Bruna Vlaiacilla de Sousa Goncalves, who around 10:30 p.m. that same evening, so less than an hour from the last murder, was waiting at a bus stop with a coworker. A man stopped on his motorcycle, actually on the sidewalk next to her. He said this was going to be a robbery, and before the poor woman could even hand over her phone, he shot and killed her. On May 23, 2014, 2 sisters were walking down a street in their own neighborhood. The murder victim, who was a 15-year-old girl named Carla Barbosa de Araujo, and her sister were stopped by a man who was an alleged robber. But this time, the man was on a black motorcycle. Rocha demanded that Carla hand over her cell phone, but Carla didn't have one, and allegedly for that, she was shot right in front of her sister. The next victim was in São Jose neighborhood with her boyfriend. A 24-year-old young woman named Isadora Aparecida Candida was shot in the chest by a man in a motorcycle helmet riding again on a black motorcycle. When the man announced he was going to rob them, Isadora was trying to hand over her cell phone, but before she could, Rocha grabbed her arm and shot her in the back. Knowing that this woman was with her boyfriend tells me 2 things. First, that Rocha was ballsy and had no problem apparently going up to women accompanied by a man, which kind of seems to me like a sense of arrogance that he wouldn't be stopped. The second thing it tells me is that this man is specifically going for women at this point because he killed the woman and left the man alive and as a witness. I wonder what's happening for the people who are witnessing these murders. I wonder if, the killings are just happening so fast and so randomly that it's over before they can even think about what to do next. I don't know. These people are victims as well. The next victim is especially sad and would be the first victim of the day. At just 17 years old, Tamara da Conciaco Silva was 5 months pregnant, sitting on a park bench next to her boyfriend when Rocha would approach them on a motorcycle and again shoot the young lady in the chest, killing her and the fetus as well. So sickening. What the fuck is wrong with this guy? Seriously. You're sitting here thinking, is this fucker seriously feeling so sorry for himself that he feels the need to go out and kill a bunch of people, mostly women? To what? Get back at them? One source would say he would confess part of the reason that he did this was because no woman would love him. But then you find out he has a fucking girlfriend the entire time that he was doing this. So that's complete bullshit. We will get to that. But his poor excuses for being a huge shitbag is disgusting. In my opinion, this self-delusional asshat likes to kill people in order to feel power or superiority over them, which is probably why he fixated himself on killing women mainly. Power. Fucking misogynistic prick. I want to punch him in the throat. The second victim of the day on June 15th, 2014 was just 13 years old. Ugh, sickening. Tainara Rodriguez de Cruz was talking to a friend whilst standing in front of the school she went to when Rocha would drive up on his motorcycle and proceed to shoot the young girl in her chest. It was then said he told her friend to run so he wouldn't shoot her also, which is so scary and so damn young. Can you imagine just standing outside your school talking to your friend when some psychopath rides up on his bike, shoots your friend dead right in front of you, and then tells you to run? Holy shit, the terror your body would feel as you bolted. I can imagine the girl was terrified, wondering if he was just going to shoot her in the back as she fled. I would wonder, is he going to follow me? Is he going to find me later if I'm a witness and kill me? Did I just leave my friend to die so that I could live? Poor thing, what else is she going to do but fucking run? That had to traumatize her for the rest of her life. This fucker. The last 3 victims happened in a 2-week span, and at the end of 2 weeks, Rocha would finally be done with his murderous spree. On July 19th, 2014, Roserine Gilberto da Silva was with her sister parking her car so that they could go inside of a dance club, when all of a sudden a motorcycle pulled up next to them. The man said that he was going to rob them, and as Roserine was trying to hand over her car keys, she was shot in the chest. The bullet also struck Roserine's sister in the arm. Poor thing had to witness her sister's death right in front of her, as they were innocently parking their car and probably so excited to go out and have fun, and then boom. Loss of life for no reason. Just 1 week later, on July 26th, 2014, Juliana Nubia Diaz, a 22-year-old young woman, was in a Fiat Palio with her boyfriend, and they were stopped at a stoplight. Suddenly, a man on a motorcycle, of course wearing his helmet, came up to the car and shot Juliana. It was found that Juliana was sadly shot both in her neck and her chest. The final victim of the motorcycle murderer, the Goiânia serial killer, the shithead known as Rocha, was on August 2nd, 2014. The 14-year-old Ana Lydia Gomes was waiting for the bus. As she was at the bus stop, a man on a black motorcycle approached and once again shot the poor girl in the chest, killing her. Sources said not long after Rocha had killed Ana, he was seen on CCTV trying to shoot another woman outside of something called a snack bar, but luckily for the young woman, his gun jammed. I guess this maybe made him mad, or he was trying to make sure he got away because sadly, he kicked the woman in the mouth before taking off on his motorcycle. It was reported by various sources that the public, including mainly the family and friends of the victims of the infamous local motorcycle murder, were putting pressure on the authorities to find this guy and stop him. I guess there were protests and demonstrations by crowds who would carry signs and pictures of their loved ones, whose lives were taken by this unknown man. When the police finally found Rocha, they would initially say that they didn't know the murderer's name, but that they only knew his physical description. In fact, some sources would say that the authorities had been convinced in the beginning that this was not the work of a single killer, but rather more than one. The physical description that the authorities originally put out for the arrest warrant was a man who was 6'1", with an athletic build, a white man who had a thin face, straight black hair, no mustache or beard, with thick eyebrows, dressed well, and had chest hair. So, to answer my question from before, it turns out the authorities did have security footage of Rocha. However, because Rocha was clever, he was able to throw them off his track. The reason that there were reports of two different colors of motorcycles, both red and black, was because Rocha would use a cover that was red over the tank of his motorcycle. The police would arrest Rocha after he had been caught using a fake license plate on his motorcycle. That's how they pulled him over. They then realized that he was already facing trial for having stolen another plate off of a motorcycle in January. What I couldn't figure out anywhere in my research was how they went from pulling him over, seeing that the wrong plate was on his bike, to searching his home for evidence. I'm not sure if they need a warrant like they do here in the States or not, but everything that I could read, which let me tell you was over 29 sources for this case. Yeah, I'm a little obsessive and I like to find every little thing that I can for the cases, but nothing came up as to what led them to searching. It was stated, though, that at the time of his arrest, he was living with his mother and brother, which confused me because it was said that he was raised by his grandparents. His family would actually come out and say about him that he was a quiet man with few friends, and he wasn't known to go out to many social activities at night. It was also reported that Rocha had never met his father, which perplexed me that he was this angry at women, yet the father seems to be the one who maybe rejected him. I wondered what his relationship with his mother was like. For 4 months before he was arrested, Rocha had been working as a security guard at a large local hospital. Can you imagine? Here, he's the security guard of a hospital, like a person who's supposed to keep other people safe, especially at a hospital. What the fuck? I always see those people and I feel so much better. And now I'm like, oh my God, are they secretly serial killers? Yikes. Just one day after his arrest for the fake plates, he would begin to confess to the murders of 39 people. At his home, the authorities would find the .38 caliber gun that was used to shoot most of his victims. He would confess in interviews that sex workers he killed were stabbed, gay people were strangled, homeless men were shot, and then his favorite victim, it came to seem, was younger women, and with them, he coldly shot them in the chest. As Rocha was confessing to his murderous acts, the police chief would say that as he was interrogating and interviewing this security guard turned killer, that Rocha was calm and he didn't even change his tone of voice as he spoke. He further said, quote, "The way his face looks expressionless is typical of psychopaths," end quote. While speaking with the investigator, Alicio Moriara Jr., Rocha would say the day he killed 2 women, both Tamara, the pregnant woman, and Tainara, the 13-year-old, the youngest victim, that he had been home drinking some whiskey and then he started to get angry and went out with the sole purpose of killing someone. He then said the next day that he would watch the news to find out about the crimes he had committed. Rocha would further say during interviews that he doesn't have a specific type, meaning blonde, brunette, etc., but that he's very angry at women, and he also, though, feels attracted to them. But here's the twisted kicker. After the authorities learned that Rocha was, in fact, in a long-term relationship, actually, they were engaged, it would be eerily figured out that his victims bore some resemblance to said fiancé. Yeah, imagine finding that out. Not only the man that she was going to marry is this sick serial killer who mainly targeted young girls, but also that many of the victims he chose looked like you. Holy shit, that poor woman. His fiancée was said to be a church-going woman who was known to take her fiancé along with her to church called Assembly of God. Maybe it's a case of never the twins shall meet. During interrogations, Rocha did not know many of his victims by name. In fact, he would ask to see pictures of them instead. And when he did talk about them, he would only refer to the victims as numbers. How dehumanizing. I think that it says a lot about how he sees human beings. It was said by the authorities that after he would describe the murder, he would kind of stare off into space for a few minutes, and sometimes even smile. He would later confess as he was talking about the crimes that he would relive them for a moment. Rocha was described as cold but intelligent. When a female officer would enter the room for anything, he would immediately stop talking. When Rocha was arrested and his belongings searched on his persons and at home, some of the items seized were a hammer, 2 different types of knives, handcuffs, and even 2 different license plates for motorcycles that he would obviously change out. Rocha was able to talk to his mother not long after he was arrested, where he would apologize to her. Rocha would be placed on suicide watch after a failed attempt at killing himself. Apparently, he smashed a light bulb in his cell on October 16, 2014, and he tried to slice his wrists with it. The guards where he was being kept said that Rocha was constantly asking for dental floss, and when they would ask him if he was planning on killing himself with it, the guards would say that he would laugh sarcastically. While awaiting for trial, Rocha was ordered to go to psychiatric evaluation where he would be diagnosed with ASPD, antisocial personality disorder, aka psychopathy, but that he was very aware of the murders that he was committing. I've said this before about people with ASPD. They know what they're doing is wrong. They just don't give a shit. Rocha's attorney had advised him not to be interviewed again, although he had already confessed, but he stated that he wanted to talk and he wanted to get this stuff out of him. Later, his attorney would say that he believed not only did Rocha confess to some crimes that he didn't commit due to aggressive questioning, but also that his client was insane. Authorities thought that there might be some sort of hero complex at first, that maybe he was thinking he was doing society a favor when he was first targeting sex workers and homeless people. But I think it's pretty clear that he liked to kill and ended up targeting whoever he wanted. This would later be shown when, after Rocha was found guilty and sentenced to 25 years in prison. Yeah, that's it. What the fuck? He would actually ask officials if he could murder his fellow inmates. Yeah, he actually asked that. He said he wanted to know if he could kill other inmates and maybe he wouldn't be tried for it since he was already in prison. Pretty sure this sick fuck likes to kill. And how the hell is he only sentenced to 25 years? Oh my god, that's terrifying. I guess to a guard, he also admitted that he still wants to kill people. The guard added, quote, "His attitude is very strange." You think? It's because he's a fucking psychopath. After the trial of one particular murder, 26-year-old Ana Maria Victor Duarte, her mother was thankful that he got 20 years in prison, felt like justice was served, and was thankful that he would rot in jail. After having an emotional testimony about how hard it was to lose her daughter, just the mere smell of her is still lingering, and her clothes and her personal items, etc., made it really hard on her mother. I can't imagine. I was just sitting there reading this, like, in my opinion, this is not justice for this poor mother and these poor families. This man should be fucking executed, and they should get to watch. Or life in prison if they feel like that's worse than death. But a mere 20 to 25 years lets this sick fuck bide his time and then get out scot-free, where he can and will do it again if given the chance. I found that in April 2016, he was charged again for 2 more murders and got 22 years in prison, so I'm hoping they maybe will either continue to charge him at different times, or maybe these aren't supposed to run concurrently. I didn't find clarification, but let's hope for everyone that this fucker never gets out of prison. One news source from the area says that he might be released when he's 56, despite his sentences, which they said added up to like 700 years, and it's because their justice system won't allow someone to stay that long in prison. I hope they continue to watch him and realize that there is no way this man is going to change. I'm going to leave you with a few things that Rocha has said since being caught as a serial killer. These are all direct quotes. In a way, I'm a victim too. This about the reasons for murdering. My mind went blank, but I would cry later. This about the murders. I was rejected a lot in the past, so I directed part of my anger towards women. Fuck your fragile ego. I wanted to say that I am remorseful, that I wanted to have a chance to pay for what I've done, to ask for forgiveness. Was that before or after you tried to cowardly commit suicide and ask if you could kill other people inside the prison because you still wanted to kill? And that, my friends, is the story of Tiago Enrique Gomes da Rocha, motorcycle murderer, a misogynistic psychopath who could one day get out of prison. I hate this guy. I cannot believe that he just started killing, feeling like that he couldn't hold it back anymore and that the urge was just so strong. And this was the only way that he could relieve the feeling or whatever his problem was. It makes me so sick when men, sorry guys, but it's usually men, who have these fragile fucking egos where someone rejects them or makes fun of them or tells them no, God forbid, or embarrasses them, whatever it is, they get so angry that they can't hold their shit together, so they go fucking kill people. Like, are you fucking kidding me? We all get embarrassed at times. We all get rejected. We all get lonely or sad or get made fun of or whatever. But the rest of us deal with our feelings and our own shit however we need to, or at least we try. We don't take it out on other people. What a pansy ass. I hate this man. I watched him in some videos, and he is a scary motherfucker. Not like in his appearance, he looks completely normal, even good looking. But when you catch those crazy eyes, you can totally see how dark and empty his eyes are. Like there is nothing there that would stop this guy from stabbing you right now. No thank you. I hope the families and the loved ones of the victims find peace and some sort of happiness after all of these senseless murders. Well, I hope you guys found this case as interesting as I did, and keep in mind, if a guy on a bike rides up to you and you think he's going to hit on you, he may just be a serial killer ready to shoot you. So run. Come on back next Monday when we will cover another case here on The Kill File where nothing stays buried forever. Stay safe, you guys. Bye. Welcome to The Kill File, your favorite true crime podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Spears. Each week we will explore the dark corners of true crime, unsolved mysteries, and murder. Join me as we uncover secrets, investigate evidence, and dive into the chilling details of some of the most fascinating cases. Get ready for a journey into the dark unknown because, in The Kill File, nothing stays buried forever.